Hi guys, it's me, Elephants Are Tasty, and I want to welcome all of you to my short-ish series on how to survive the IB program. Now, I uploaded a video a few days ago talking about how I got my IB diploma and I was looking at my scores, and then from that I got the idea that maybe there are some people who want to see if they want to do IB or are having trouble with IB, and maybe my experiences can help them out. And later videos will go through different components of IB, like the extended essay and CAS hours. So when I signed up to be in the IB diploma program at my high school, I didn't really have any idea what I was getting myself into. My parents kind of knew about it. They knew there was lots of essays and community service, and it was like a rigorous academic curriculum, but I really didn't know at all. And then when I was signing up for high school classes, my parents were encouraging me to do IB anyway, so I couldn't really control it because we didn't really know all of what it entailed. So I ended up signing up for IB classes during my freshman year. So basically I was going into the IB diploma completely blind, like 95% blind, but here I am 4 years later. I've earned my IB diploma, and I'm just hoping I can help some of y'all out, or you just relate to my experience. So the International Baccalaureate, or IB diploma program, for any of you guys who don't know, is basically a rigorous academic curriculum in high school or secondary school for those of you outside of America. It contains a lot of different components. You have to do CAS hours, which is 150 hours of creativity, action, or service. You have to write the extended essay. You have to take a philosophy course called Theory of Knowledge. It encompasses a whole bunch of things that something like Advanced Placement, or AP, doesn't incorporate. So now that the intro is out of the way, and hopefully you have somewhat of an idea of what IB is, I'm going to go through a few myths and truths and explain them about the IB program. Number 1, the IB program is hard work. This is a truth. It's definitely not a myth, it is very true. The IB program is pretty much the most rigorous academic course a high school student or secondary school student can go through. And it has a whole bunch of different components, like I said before, besides just coursework and exams, so that can make it a lot more complicated than something like Advanced Placement. Number 2, IB is for conventionally smart people only. This is definitely a myth. I've just never been a conventionally smart student with perfect grades, all A's all the time, and I got through IB and got my diploma. So if you're thinking that you're not the smartest person ever, so you won't be able to do IB, you're probably fine. I was fine, I know you are too. Number 3, IB causes excessive sleep loss and stress. So this is a truth, sadly, and it might sound daunting at first, but I want to explain it. So there were several nights throughout my junior and senior years where I lost plenty of sleep. I've never pulled an all-nighter to study for IB, and I got my diploma, but it really depends on who you ask. Several of my friends pulled all-nighters to get their IB diplomas. It just really depends on who you are as a student and how you like to study and the amount of work you want to put into something. Now, IB was very stressful for all of us. You could ask anyone from my IB class, they would say they were stressed at least like half the year or something. And I get stressed very easily, so there were plenty of nights where I just kind of broke down and cried because I was so tired, but I had a big deadline coming up, so I had to work on it. But honestly, all that stress, I really hated it then, but it caused me to grow as a person and develop my study skills and things like that. So the stress and loss of sleep you get from the IB program really depends on who you are as a person, how much room for growth you have. Number 4, and yes, I have heard this before, IB students are some type of mythical creatures that are held above everyone else and just isolated from normal students. This is a complete myth. This is probably the most incorrect thing I've ever heard about IB students. And I don't know if it's because something about the IB program just makes us different from everyone else, apparently. This is false. Just because we might have more academic requirements and all this extra creativity, action, service hour stuff, that doesn't make us different than anyone else. We're not necessarily smarter than anyone else. In fact, many people will argue we're dumber for even taking the IB program in the first place. But we still experience stress like other students. We don't get perfect grades. No one always gets 100s or 95s or even anything in the 90s in IB. There are plenty of people who get grades that would be the same grades that someone would get in another class. We're not perfect, and we're not different from anyone else. Number 5, and it's a big one, your social life becomes non-existent. This is a myth, and hopefully you're happy to hear that. And a lot of people will tell you it's not a myth and it's a truth, but I honestly think from my experience it's a myth. Yes, you have to do academic and other work all the time, but it's really not all the time no matter how much you think it is. Like, throughout my IB experience, I still had time to watch YouTube every day. I played video games most days. I had time to hang out with my friends, and even some IB-related events gave me time to hang out with my friends who were in IB, and I was able to meet a whole bunch of new people that I wouldn't have met if I wasn't in IB. Number 6 is CAS hours are impossible. This is a myth. Of course, people have gotten their IB diploma, and to get the IB diploma, you have to do all your CAS hours. So obviously, it's a complete myth that CAS hours are impossible. Now, my advice for completing your CAS hours on time and with like an even amount of like creativity, action, and service, just whenever there's an opportunity to do a CAS project or do a CAS thing with your friend, take the opportunity if there's not something that's much more important. For example, I was low on service hours, and there was an opportunity for a bunch of IB kids to go out and do Habitat for Humanity. I took that opportunity, and I was much closer to completing my service hours. The course is over 2 years, so you have plenty of time to find opportunities and make up your own projects to get CAS hours. If you guys have any more IB-related things that you want to be myth or truthified, you can put them in the comments or ask me on Twitter or whatever, or I might answer them in a later video. So now I'm just going to talk about my 4-year experience with the IB program, and admittedly I wrote like a lot of this stuff on a script, so focus. So if I look down a lot, it's because I don't want to miss anything, because I want to be as helpful as possible. My experience with the IB program started in 9th grade when I was like a small, tiny, little naive freshman. We had to decide if we wanted to do the 2-year-long IB program in junior and senior years during our freshman year. And that kind of sucked, and it kind of sucks now because a lot of people didn't know what they were getting into, but it all worked out eventually. So freshman year, we had a couple of pre-IB accelerated courses to get us ready for the whole IB experience. We had accelerated science and pre-world area studies, or pre-WAS. Excel-Sci was a 2-year class or program where we did the 3 sciences, biology, chemistry, and physics in 2 years instead of 3. A lot of people took pre-IB classes for the first 2 years just to get all 3 sciences out of the way, so some schools might allow that as well. Overall, I found pre-WAS to be fairly forgettable and not useful for the rest of my IB experience. Basically, sophomore year was a continuity of the pre-IB curriculum. The second year of Excel-Sci was much better than my freshman year. We had an amazing teacher. He taught us the second half of chemistry and all of physics, and he was amazing. He made class entertaining. He didn't actually hate us. He was just an all-around great teacher, and in his own words, he says, "All science is physics or stamp collecting." I just think he had so many awesome phrases, and we remember him, and the class was easier because he helped us out. So as for the history sector of my studies, this was the year of the beloved APUSH. If you don't know what APUSH is, it's AP United States History. Now, this was an awful class. I've never been a fan of United States history as much as I love European or Asian history, so the class wasn't that interesting for me, but that class kicked my ass. Thankfully, I crammed enough when exam season rolled around and I got a 5 on the AP test, but the year after that was the redesign, so now it's a new style of test, so I sadly can't really give any advice about it. So my second semester of sophomore year, I joined the color guard, and if you've seen my Mirror Mirror dance video for the Ruby music, you know a basic concept of what color guard is. So if you don't know what color guard is, it's basically the people in costumes who dance and perform with the marching bands, and we perform themed shows and all that jazz. And even though we had like daily rehearsals and competitions every couple of weeks, I survived the pre-IB coursework, which isn't saying much because it wasn't actually IB yet, And yes, in case you're wondering, I survived 2 marching seasons and 3 winter guard seasons while in IB. Junior year began, and at the end of sophomore year, we were given a orientation on how to do CAS, because after sophomore year, when you finally joined the IB program, you could start doing your CAS hours. So that really helped because I had summer band for my first marching season in August, and that gave me about 120 or 130 hours of combined creativity and action. So if you're in marching band, or you want to be in marching band, but you don't know if you can handle it with IB, it gives you a lot of CAS hours, and I handled it even with my low stress tolerance. So during the actual school year, I had daily band rehearsals, we had to go to football games almost every week, we had competitions on the weekends sometimes, so this was really stressful along with my IB coursework, and I never really got used to it, and it was just always kind of stressing me out. I was in a constant stressed out state, which is probably why my head's so messed up now. But we had several people in the band program who are also in IB, and they handled it too, and when you have a tight-knit community like that where you share these things that are causing you stress, you can all support each other. So if you're worried about not getting support in IB, find friends who are in the same situation as you, and you can support each other, and it makes things a lot easier. So that year, my IB classes were, and I gotta read off the list so I remember, IB Spanish SL, English HL Year 1, Visual Arts HL Year 1, Biology HL Year 1, and the first half of Theory of Knowledge, or TOK, and finally, History HL Year 1, which was more of a AP European history class because we didn't have an IB exam for that, and we just took the AP Euro test, which I ended up getting a 5 on. On the second half of junior year, we started talking about our TOK essays and our extended essays, which extended essays, the best. I'll definitely talk about those separately in another video, because if I added them in this video would be 1,000 hours long. By the end of the year, I was so ready for break and so ready for summer. And by the end of junior year, I was about 65 to 75% done with all my CAS hours. So just get as much CAS out of the way as you can, and you'll have no problem finishing it by the end of senior year. So then senior year rolled around, and summer band came again. I got more CAS hours from summer band, as well as my fair share of stress and lots of midnight crying. But at the beginning of senior year, I spent the first couple of months writing my history IA, working on the EE. I spent most of my senior year working on the EE extended essay. It was not as stressful as people chalked it up to be. I think it was really because I was working on a subject I cared a lot about. If you've watched my London videos, you probably might know what my visual arts EE was about. JMW Turner, Best Artist. I also finished TOK in the first semester of senior year, and the TOK essay was like, okay. TOK wasn't my favorite class. It was really eye-opening and helpful, but it just like wasn't my perfect cup of tea, if you know what I mean. So I finished CAS. I had no trouble finishing in the end because I got a lot of my hours out beforehand, and I kept up with as many deadlines as I could. It was stressful, but keeping up with deadlines really helps. So the spring semester was particularly painful for several reasons. One, the winter guard season we had was especially time consuming. The winter guard was really stressful because we had rehearsals like every day and competitions almost every weekend. So there was like not a lot of time for homework and then study for exams. And then I also had some personal issues going on that were really tearing me apart, and it just made everything a whole lot worse. But then once those issues resolved themselves, and it just felt like all this weight was just lifted off my shoulders, I felt so much better. And this was like a couple weeks before exam season, and honestly I think that if those issues had persisted into exam season, my scores would have been much worse. So basically a quick mini lesson, which I'll also hopefully make another video about. Take care of yourself and your social relationships in your social life while you're in IB. It'll do you lots of good, and if there's something negative in your life that you cared about but it's just holding you down, and you want to get your IB diploma and you want to get good scores, just cut it out of your life because it'll definitely help in the long run. So exam season finally rolled around. My IB Biology HL review, which I compiled myself, was about 42 pages. My friend helped me study for biology, which really helps, so get your friends to study with you. Even if they're not an IB, they can ask you trivia questions if they have your review in front of you. And of course, I spent a week every day cramming for the IB History HL papers, and that was great. And cramming does help. Teachers say cramming doesn't help. Cramming does help. You know things when you work together and study and cram and just all those things. Just being done with IB exams forever, it's the most amazing feeling, and I was happy crying, and people were like, oh my gosh, what's wrong, did you do bad? And I went up to my history teacher and I was happy crying, and she's like, what happened? What happened? I was like, no, I'm happy crying because it went really well, and she just hugged me, and it was the best feeling I've ever gotten from IB. So just know, all your hard work and all the stress and all the midnight crying sessions and all the times you don't want to go to school, all the times you want to quit IB, it'll get better and you will do it and you will get your diploma. And yes, IB isn't for everyone, and if you really don't want to do IB, then don't do IB. But if you're being forced to do IB, then hopefully you get through it. But I know you can, and just support each other and you will get through it. So that basically sums up my 4-year IB experience, and no matter how bleak this video may sound, and if anyone who personally knows me is watching this video and recalls how much I complained or cried about IB, I'm looking at you. But it just all paid off, and I feel so much better that I actually did IB. And I hate IB. I still hated it. I wish I didn't do it, and I'm glad I did it at the same time. It's made me a better person. It's helped me control myself with studying and social life and then exams, and then, oh my gosh, I gotta deal with this. I want to go to a movie. I don't want to study for my test. It really helped me with that. IB teaches you a lot of skills that you'll probably need in the future. You may not be motivated to do something, but you have to do it anyway, and that's how life is sometimes, and you've just got to do it and not complain, and sometimes IB really teaches you that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be putting more how to survive IB videos in the future. Hopefully you find this helpful or relatable. Yeah, if you have any questions or suggestions for an IB related video, you can comment or send it to me on Twitter, whatever you want to do. But thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.